Hello students, today we are back with section 4, 4.4, the sign of 4. Alright, in this particular novel, the number 4 is very dominant. 4 signifies the number of men who are involved in looting the treasure. Okay, now this particular novel, as I've told you, we are not concerned with the entire novel actually. We are only going to do the 2 chapters that we have for the exam, for the syllabus. But for that, students, we need to know the entire story as well. Hence, in my earlier 4 lectures, I have dealt with the outline, the plot, the synopsis, and also one of the chapters that we have for the exam. And now in today's class, I'm going to do chapter 3, the quest of a solution. Now, chapter 2 and chapter 3 are the beginning. It's the beginning part of the novel wherein Miss Watson has come and she's met Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Now, students, I want you all to go and have a look, go through the entire lectures, the 4 lectures that have been done so that you understand today's chapter 3. All right, now in this chapter, Miss Watson and Holmes and also Dr. Watson, they decide to go and meet. They are all called according to the latest letter, the last letter that she has received along with the pearl. All right, from an anonymous person, she has been called to a particular place. Okay, and so she was also told not to inform the police, the cops, but she could get 2 of her acquaintances, 2 of her friends along with her. So she says that she doesn't have anybody close friend. Hence, she's approached Holmes, Sherlock Holmes, a very famous detective. And so Holmes agrees to come with her and also get Dr. Watson along with them. All right. In the previous chapter, we also come to know that Holmes, without informing Dr. Watson, as in he doesn't tell where he's going, but then he has gone out somewhere and he's back at 5:30, that is 5:30. So let's begin with chapter 3, in quest of a solution. It was 5:30 before Holmes returned. He was bright, eager, and in excellent spirits, a mood which in his case alternated with fits of the blackest depression. Now we know that we have seen in the previous chapter that Sherlock Holmes is a complete professional. He looks at all the people who visit him. Okay, he's not interested in anything else except for the details that are related to his case. Okay, so after coming back, all right, he's very excited. Probably he has come across a lot of details, but that he's not revealing right now. So as we read, we come to know. Okay, he's in very excellent spirits. That is, he's very excited, very happy, probably because he has gotten details. Next paragraph. There is no great mystery in this matter, he said, taking the cup of tea which I had poured out to him. So students, I is Dr. Watson. The facts appear to admit of only one explanation. Okay, so he said this case is just this girl, Miss Watson, she feels that there's a lot of her case is really very twisted. But Sherlock Holmes feels that no, it's not like that. So what? You've solved it already? That is the surprise question from Dr. Watson. That how could he solve it just in one meeting? Well, that would be too much to say. I have discovered a suggestive fact. That is all. It is, however, very suggestive. So, you know, he's kind of guessing. Okay, he's guessing. And let's see what the fact that he's come across. The details are still to be added. So, you know, all the cases for him are like those jigsaw puzzle, pieces of jigsaw puzzle. So here he has found certain pieces of jigsaw puzzle. So he says probably, and he's very confident that today after the evening meeting of theirs, okay, the surprise meeting with the anonymous person, he is definitely going to get all those missing pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. Okay, so he continues, I have just found on consulting the back files of the Times that Major Sholto of Upper Nordward, late of the 34th Bombay Infantry, died on the 28th of April. You have to move to the right hand side. Okay, I may be very obtuse, Holmes, but I fail to see what this suggests. So, you know, he's telling that Sherlock Holmes has come upon the details that Mr. Motson's only friend, Major Sholto, okay, he passed away on a particular day. Now, Dr. Watson is clueless. He says, I don't understand how that particular detail is important over here. Okay, that is why he says, I may be very obtuse, that is very out of the place, very cross. You might find me not interesting, but then I'm not able to understand how come death of Major Sholto is important in our case. No, you surprise me. Look at it in this way then. Captain Motson, that is Miss Motson's father, he disappears. The only person in London whom he could have visited is Major Sholto. Major Sholto denies having heard that he was in London. 4 years later, Sholto dies. Within a week of his death, Captain Motson's daughter, she receives a valuable present, which is repeated every year, and now culminates in a letter which describes her as a wronged woman. Wronged woman means some injustice has been done to her. So now here Sherlock Holmes has got lot of details. Students, it's really surprising. This is possible because Sherlock Holmes has got an eye for details. Not even a single detail he is ready to miss. So here he's found that Major Motson, Captain Motson, he's disappeared. All right, Major Sholto, he denies that he has met him. But then after 4 years, there is his sudden death. And after a week after his death, all right, Captain Motson's daughter, she has been receiving that pearl every year on that exact date. All right. And now this particular year, she's also received a letter saying that some injustice has been done to her. So, you know, as I told you, these are all details of a jigsaw puzzle. These are all parts of a puzzle, so which he is going to open now. All right. So what wrong can it refer to except the deprivation of her father? All right, as it is, she had lost her mother. So now Sherlock Holmes is thinking, what more can happen? What worse can happen than the death of her father? Now that she has become an orphan. And why should the presence begin immediately after Sholto's death? Unless it is that Sholto's heir, that is son, Sholto's son, knows something of the mystery and desires to make compensation. Have you any alternative theory which will meet the facts? So, you know, he has actually, you know, very smartly found out a lot of details. He feels that Major Sholto, he passed away and she has been receiving pearls only after his death. So she feels that Major Sholto's children, they also know something about some injustice that has been done to Miss Motson. And hence, to compensate for that, they have been sending her one precious pearl every year. But now there is something that is adding on to the story, and hence they have invited her to meet them. But what a strange compensation, and how strangely made. Why too should he write a letter now rather than 6 years ago? Letter speaks of giving her justice. What justice can she have? Okay, it is too much to suppose that her father is still alive. There is no other injustice in her case that you can know of. This is something, this particular paragraph is spoken by Dr. Watson. Still, Dr. Watson is absolutely clueless. You know, it is very difficult to believe that Miss Motson's father, Captain Motson, is still alive. It's been 10 years that he is missing. So, you know, he really cannot make out that how come he is alive. All right. And if she was to receive the pearl, it was a very strange compensation. All right. He's just very confused. Next paragraph. There are difficulties. Yes, he agrees, said Sherlock Holmes, pensively, that is seriously, worth thinking. Okay, but our expedition tonight will solve them all. Expedition is a mission. He says tonight many things will be clear. Okay, because whoever has sent the letter, one thing is very clear, that he does not intend to harm her. He is her well-wisher, and that is the reason probably he's sending her one pearl every year. Okay, it's just that he does not want the cops to be involved, the police to be involved, but then he is also trusting her. Okay, he has a soft corner for her because of injustice that has been done to her, and hence he wants her to, he has given her an option that she can come either alone or she can get two of her friends along with her. So then Sherlock Holmes says, we shall go down. We should go. We should be leaving. Okay, because there is hardly an hour left. I picked up my hat. It's Dr. Watson who's picking up his hat. Heavy as stick in case the need may be. She must have been more than woman if she did not feel some uneasiness at the strange enterprise upon which we were embarking. So Dr. Watson says it is not very surprising. Okay, in spite of being composed, okay, she was pale, but still she was composed. She was calm. She was not letting her nervousness show on her face. So Dr. Watson says that's quite normal in that situation. Had she not been uneasy, had she not been restless, then it would have been surprising. But then in that situation where she did not know what was going to happen or whom was she going to meet, it was absolutely normal. Okay, and then she readily answered few additional questions which Sherlock Holmes put to her. Next paragraph. Major Sholto was a very particular friend of Papa's. She said, his letters were full of allusions to the Major. Allusions is reference. He and Papa were in command of the troops at the Andaman Islands. This is something that has been covered in detail. Go through the outline of the novel. Students, we come to know that Major Sholto and Major Captain Morton, they both were posted on the Andaman Island and they had the job. They were in charge of the prison, okay, the jail. So they were thrown a great deal together. By the way, a curious paper was found in Papa's desk, which no one could understand. I don't suppose that it is of the slightest importance, but I thought you might care to see it. So I brought it with me. It is here. So students, in the earlier chapter, Sherlock Holmes, he appreciates Miss Watson. He says, you are an ideal client, because she has brought in all possible details that she could offer to solve the case. And again here, there is one particular paper that she found in her father's luggage. Okay, so that paper also she has brought it here. Okay, Holmes unfolded the paper, that is, he opened the paper carefully and smoothed it upon his knee. That is, he just made it flat, because obviously that paper was 10 years old. So it was crumpled. So he just flattened it. He then very methodically examined it all over with his double lens, that is magnifying lens. Okay, he used a magnifying lens. Students, we can make out a typical detective with a hat, a coat, a magnifying lens in his hand. This is the same setting. Okay, he is examining that paper. Next paragraph. It is paper of native Indian manufacture. It has sometime been pinned to a board. Diagram appears to be of a plan of a large building with numerous halls, corridors, passages. At one point is a small cross done in red ink. 3.37 from left. Okay, that's written in faded pencil. In the left hand corner is a curious hieroglyphic like 4 corners in a line with their arms touching. So now what has he understood from the paper? That the paper is not made in England. It's an Indian paper. Okay, that paper was pinned on the board. All right. The diagram, from the diagram he can make out that it's a large building. Okay, he's not using the word palace, but he says it's a large building, lot of halls, corridors, Okay, there's some marking on it with red ink. Okay, there's a curious symbol also on it, which he cannot make out what it is. And he's really curious to know what symbol it is. Beside, it is written in very rough and coarse characters. Okay, it's roughly written. There are 4 names written: Jonathan Small, Muhammad Singh, Abdullah Khan, Dost Akbar. So students, these 4, we can make out what map it must be. Can you at least guess? If you have seen the earlier lectures, students, you can easily make out what I'm talking about. Okay, this is the plan, okay, of the robbery of looting the treasure, in which Mr. Small, Jonathan Small, was involved, and the other 3 people. So there were 4 people who were involved in that robbery. All right, so that map is of the treasure where they had the place where they had hidden the treasure. Maybe the red mark was the exact place where the treasure was hidden. Okay, I confess that I do not see how this bears upon. Let me just move up on the right hand side. Okay, he is not able to understand how that mark, that symbol is important, but it has been carefully kept in a pocket book. For one side is clean as other. This is that map, that particular paper has been very carefully preserved. Okay, so she says here, Miss Motson, she says, yes, indeed, it was in the pocket book that we found it. So, you know, look at his guessing. Whatever he's guessed is absolutely correct. And it's only because of his absolutely clear and detailed observation. He has looked at even the edges of the paper, okay, which are very clean. And that shows that the map was not kept anywhere roughly, but it was kept in a preserved pocket book. Okay. Then next paragraph, preserve it carefully, Miss Motson, for it may prove to be of use to us. I begin to suspect that this matter may turn out to be much deeper and more subtle than I first supposed. So he says that this is not what it looks to be or appears to be. Okay, he has also found out a lot of things about Major Sholto, but still he says that whatever I have gathered is just not the part of the story. There's much more to it. I need to reconsider my ideas. That is what he says. He leaned back the cab, and I could see by his drawn brow and his vacant eye that he was thinking something very deeply, because whatever he had observed was not as simple as that. Miss Motson and I, so you know, he has got a chance. Dr. Watson has got a chance to talk to his lady. Okay, he's really, as I told you, it's love at first sight. He's deeply in love with her. But then, students, this setting is a really old setting where he's going really slow and he's trying to know her. So he's having conversation with her. So Miss Motson and I chatted in an undertone, that is very softly, about our present expedition and the possible outcome, but her companion maintained his impenetrable reserve till the end of the journey. Impenetrable reserve means nobody could make out, okay, something that cannot be penetrated. Okay, so they could not make out what was going on in his head, because he was just leaning behind his seat and he was thinking. So both of them were just guessing what was going on in his head, but they could not confirm what exactly it is. Next paragraph. It was September evening, so probably winters, and not yet 7 o'clock, but the day had been a dreary one, and not very unclear one. Dense drizzly fog lay low upon the great city. There is fog, the fog is there very clear, and hence they are covered up in cloaks, that is jackets and mufflers. Okay, mud colored clouds drooped sadly over the muddy streets. There were clouds low, so you know the visibility was poor. Down the strand, the lamps were but misty splotches of diffused light. So the lamps were hardly of any use, okay, because nothing was clear. Okay, the yellow glare from the shop windows streamed upon the steamy, vaporous air. Students, it's a foggy place, so we can make out the foggy setting. So probably whoever has called her also has kept everything in mind. In that, where the vision is not clear, maybe if something goes wrong, that person could just escape. Okay, So there was to my mind something airy. Airy is something very scary. All right, ghost-like in the endless procession of faces which flitted across these narrow bars of light. You know, faces also were not very clear. Imagine a street, okay, where they are passing. The lamps are not clear. It's foggy everywhere. Vision is blurred. Everybody is covered up in cloaks, hats, mufflers. So, you know, everybody was looking like ghosts. Okay, like all humankind, they flitted from the gloom once more. I'm not subject to impressions, but the dull, heavy evening with strange business upon which we were engaged combined to make him nervous. Look now, Dr. Watson had been with Sherlock Holmes since a long time, but still that whole setting was making him a little scary. He was nervous, he was depressed because they didn't know who had called, what was it. All right, they had 50-50 chances going on in their head. Okay, they could make out that since they had called in not the girl just alone but along with two companions, which means they trusted her, but at the same time they had asked her not to inform the police, which means there's something wrong also. So you know, the 50-50 chances are very obvious. Next page, 214. Okay, she was suffering from the same feeling. So he says even as he was nervous and depressed, same was with Miss Mordson. Next paragraph. Okay, he held his open notebook upon his knee. Time to time he jotted down figures and memoranda in the light of his pocket lantern. Okay, both of them, Dr. Watson and Miss Mordson, they were like depressed, they were nervous, probably having butterflies in their stomach. Okay, but then at the same time here, Sherlock Holmes was a person who was as busy as ever. He was jotting down something, some numbers, some memories, some observations. Okay, they reached the place at the Lyceum Theatre. The crowds were thick at the side entrances. Continuous stream of hansoms. Hansom is a horse carriage, a tonga. Four-wheelers rattling up, discharging their cargoes. Cargoes is parcels. Okay, short-fronted men, be-shawled, be-diamonded women. Okay, so here is a perfect picture. Look at the imagery that is created. It's a busy place. Okay, this is a busy place where it's full of crowd. Okay, there are horse carriages, there are four-wheelers, there are some people are busy shifting their boxes, their cargoes. Okay, there are men who are in shirts, and there are simple women without any diamond. So you can make out, students, this is not a very plush area. This is a very normal area, a downtown we can say, where the condition of women and men, the people, were not very high class. It was a very low or a middle class area. Okay, we had hardly reached the third pillar, which was our rendezvous. Rendezvous is again a French word which means meeting. Okay, before a small, dark, brisk man in the dress of a coachman accosted us. So, you know, they are just waiting there. They are observing a lot of things. When they come across a person, a small, dark man, okay, in the dress of a coachman. So he's come in a coach. He's probably the owner of the coach. Okay, the carriage. He came to them, all right, and he says, "Are you the parties who come with Miss Mordson?" Okay, so he's just confirming. So are you two people with Mordson along with her? "I am Miss Mordson, and these two gentlemen are my friends," said she. You know, all three of them, they are approached by a person in a carriage, and the person is also confirming whether she is only Miss Mordson. So he bent a pair of wonderfully penetrating and questioning eyes upon us. So that man is also, you know, trying to gauge whether they are police or whatever. "You will excuse me, miss," he said with a certain dogged manner, "but I was to ask you to give me a word that neither of your companion is a police officer." Okay, so he is very polite. So he just wants to confirm that these two people along with her, okay, are not policemen. Okay, dogged manner is a suspicious manner, hesitant manner. We can say whichever way. Okay, he is hesitant, yet he is very suspicious, and he wants to confirm his doubt that those two people are not policemen. I give you my word on that, she answered. Okay, he gave a shrill whistle on which a street Arab led across a four-wheeler opened the door. The man who had addressed us mounted to the box while we took our places inside. So, you know, that person, after confirming that they were not policemen, he gives out a whistle, he blows a whistle, and from behind the lane, there comes in a four-wheeler, a carriage. Okay, and the door is opened, and all three of them, they are asked to sit inside. We had hardly done so before the driver whipped up his horse. We plunged away at a furious pace through the foggy streets. So students, we can imagine this particular setting. It's a foggy place. The road is very crowded. And from among the crowd, a person has approached them. And all three of them, they are told to sit in a carriage. It's a tonga. It's a closed covered tonga, so they don't know where exactly they are taken. Okay, and the situation was again a curious one. They were driving, as I told you, they're driving to an unknown place. They didn't know what exactly was happening. The right side of the page, the first paragraph on the right side. Okay, it was a complete hoax. They didn't know what exactly was happening. Unconceivable hypothesis, that is guesses. They were kind of guessing out. Okay, their brains were racing just like the horses, the tonga, the carriage. They didn't know what exactly was going on. Okay, and they had a good reason to think. Definitely anybody would become or would think like that. Okay, then Miss Modson's demeanor, that is her behavior, was as resolute and collected as ever. So she was as calm as ever, because probably, poor girl, she had nothing to lose. She had lost her mother already. Her father was missing since 10 years. Okay, and she did not have any friends or any relatives as such. So probably that girl did not have anything to lose. So she was as calm. Her demeanor, is behavior, was as calm as ever. I endeavored to cheer and amuse her by reminiscences of my adventures in Afghanistan. But to tell the truth, I was myself excited at the situation and curious to our destination that my stories were slightly involved. So, you know, he tries, Dr. Watson, he goes out of his way to make her feel comfortable. He tries to discuss, okay, about his memories. He tries to narrate. Reminiscences are memories. Okay, he tries to narrate the memories that he had encountered when he was in Afghanistan. But you know, at the same time, his brain was also working. It was excited, and they did not know what was going to happen. Okay, so to this day, she declares that I told her one moving anecdote as to how a musket looked into my tent at the dead of night and how I fired a double-barreled tiger cub at it. So, you know, this all happened in Afghanistan, his encounter with animals. Okay, at first, I had some idea as to the direction in which we were driving. But soon, with our pace, the fog, and my limited knowledge of London, I lost my bearings, knew nothing save that we seemed to be going a long way. Okay, Dr. Watson says initially he was trying to make out, trying to look from here and there, okay, corners of the windows, open spaces. Okay, he was trying to see as to which direction they were going. But the tonga was going at a very fast pace. It was really very foggy outside. As I told you, the anonymous person had chosen a perfect evening in order to meet them. They could not make out exactly where they were going. Okay, and we also come to know that Dr. Watson had a very limited knowledge about London. Okay, Sherlock Holmes was never at fault, however. He muttered the names as the cab rattled through squares. Now, Sherlock Holmes was as sharp as ever. He was able to make out, he was listing the names. Okay, that means he was noting the direction, the names of the streets. Okay, he was marking everything in his head. Rochester Row, said he. Now Vincent Square. So these are all places. Okay, Vauxhall Bridge Road. Okay, Surrey Side, apparently. Now we are on the bridge. So, you know, they look at this interesting paragraph. It's all the places in England, the streets, the roads that they have passed. Next paragraph. We did indeed get a fleeting view of the stretch of the Thames. Thames is the river. lamps shining upon the broad, silent water. Cab dashed on and soon involved in the labyrinth of streets upon the side. Okay, they were all going across the Thames River, the silent water. Okay, and soon involved labyrinth, that is mixture of streets. There were all lot of streets there. Okay, Woodsworth Road. Look, he's just again. It's just list goes on and on. Okay, they are all these names. You know, when we read all these names, we come to know that they are traveling too much and at a very great speed. Even the next paragraph, students, see Wordsworth Road, Priory Road, Lock Hall Lane, Stockwell Place, Robert Street, Cold Harbor Lane. So these are all the names. So we know that they have crossed many streets, many lanes, river, okay, bridge. All right. And now, next page, we had indeed reached a questionable and forbidding neighborhood. Finally, they were there. And how was the place? It was a very questionable, very doubtful place. Probably there were not many people in that particular area. Forbidding means people who usually don't go there, not people who are not allowed to go there. You're not allowed to go there, which is forbidden. Long lines of dull brick houses were only relieved by coarse glare and tawdry brilliancy of public houses at the corner. Again, the writer is just, describing the place. How was the place? Okay, there were dull brick houses. All right, all the houses were of same fashion. Okay, rows of two-storied villas. Villas are bungalows of 2 stories. Okay, with a miniature garden. All the houses were really typical, students. They all were villas, okay, bungalows with a small garden in front of it. All right, interminable lines of new staring brick buildings. There were these lines and lines of buildings over there. The monster tentacles which the giant city was throwing out into the country. So this was a countryside. Countryside means away from the main city. We can make out that away from the main city because it was very quiet. Okay, that area was really very quiet. At last, the cab drew at the 3rd house in a new terrace. None of the other houses were inhabited, and that at which we stopped was as dark as its neighbors, save for a single glimmer of kitchen window, which means that these houses, none of the houses had light. Inhabited means there were nobody was, as in it was not very bright. As it is, the houses were really dull, and they could not make out whether the houses were occupied or were they empty. Now, even this particular house, it was completely dark except for a single light in the kitchen window. So they knocked there, and the door was instantly thrown open by a servant in yellow turban, loose-fitting clothes, yellow sash. There was something strangely incongruous in this oriental figure framed in the commonplace doorway of a 3rd-rate suburban dwelling house. Look at the description. Again, a very detailed description. You know, they could not make out exactly where they had come, and they could not make out about the owner of the house. Okay, the Sahib awaits you, which means this particular person was probably from Asia because he's using the Indian word, okay, Hindi word, that is Sahib. The Sahib awaits you. Okay, said he, and even as he spoke, there came a high piping voice from some inner room. Show them in to me. Khidmutgar. Khidmutgar is a male servant. Show them straight in to me. So there's somebody who has ordered that servant to bring them in. So this is where the 2nd chapter stops. Okay, this is what we have for the exam. So we need to do a detailed study of Miss Watson, Captain Watson, Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, and about the treasure. So if you want to, students, know more about it, you need to go through all the 5 lectures of 4.4, the sign of 4. So students, I hope you go through all of them and study. Thank you so much, students. Bye.